my garden revels. You know, one thing that I find very interesting about spring is that it takes me by surprise. It just hits me always from the left side or somewhere unexpected. Here's what I mean. Just this morning, I was walking outside, coming into the nursery, and boom, there's just this great fragrant, sweet, amazing fragrance of daphne hit me in the face, and it went right down into my spinal column and just started clicking all kinds of breakers, like on, and it's just a neat surprise, kind of unexpected. I want to show you a couple of other surprises that I think are neat about spring too. Take a look. This one, bleeding hearts were found in Japan and China, and then brought over to the UK, England, and that's, you know, it's Dicentra spectabalis is the botanical name. Dicentra is actually two hooks on there. You can see the two hooks, this one, and on the other side is two hooks there. So that's the Dicentra, and the spectabalis is that it's so showy. So Dicentra spectabalis is a botanical name brought over from China and Japan, where it was just growing naturally. Some guy from the UK said, "This is an amazing plant." And I always think it is, because it never, ever fails to impress me every spring just on how intricate it is. And the neat thing about the Dicentras, by the way, is there's some new varieties that you should know about as well. There's white ones, complete white ones that are very nice too. Oh, and then there is the gold heart. Let me show you that one, because that's a neat one. Now, before I do that, Dicentra is a great plant if you have afternoon shade, especially if you have like a quiet corner that you need it filled up, because it does fill up nicely, and it's a good spring bloomer. The neat thing about this is, because, you know, it's one of the first ones to come up in spring, it says, hey, you know, hope has arrived. And it always gives you that little bit cheery lift, that little spring in your step when you see them. But the other thing too is that it dies back when the summer weather comes in. So when it starts to get hot, it dies completely back to the ground. So it comes, says, hey, it's spring, we're here, let's keep going. And then summertime says, hey, it's time for another show to watch. So it goes away quietly, and it comes back dependably. Let me show you that gold heart. It's this guy. Now, why I like this particular one, of course, it's just waking up. This is technically, it's just waking up, so it hasn't bloomed yet. It blooms into a white bloom. But take a look at that foliage. It's just this bright, bright golden. And that's particularly nice on that, because in the shade sections, in our shade gardens, things tend to be versions of green. So green on green on green, which isn't bad, but gold, chartreuse color, yellow really stands out. So it's a nice option for you. So this is spectabalis. This one is particularly called white gold. Uh-oh, it's starting to rain. Of course. The other plant I wanted to show you was the Daphne odora Ario marginata. That is our wonderful, fragrant Daphne plant. So a couple things about this. Now, Ario marginata, because it has that margin on there, so Oftentimes when you buy them younger, by the way, you'll see plants like this, and it ain't so marginy. But as it grows, you'll get a lot more definition on that. One plant that I have to show you, of course, that when I showed you outside the front door, is the Mayagina. Isn't that amazing? Just let me show it to you again. A couple things about the Ario marginata, the Daphne, by the way, is that these stalks right here can be very brittle. So after it finishes blooming, give this a nice haircut. So that way what we want to do is when we give it a trim, it introduces some more branching. And the more branching is the better it will hold the ice or the snow in the winter time. So keep giving that a trim, keep it a little bit smaller, and it keeps it a little bit tougher. By the way, a really unknown aside, I always have it right next to the Daphne, but folks tend to overlook it. It takes the same conditions as Sarcococca, and something I highly recommend too, because it's one of those, while it doesn't have those pretty pink blooms, it has a small secret weapon. Take a look. It's those little blooms underneath the leaf. And what makes those small blooms is that there's lots of them, and it's just sweetly fragrant as the Daphne. So Sarcococca, this is Sarcococca rusticafolia. So it tends to get a tad bit larger. Trim it to how you like it, but it is also very fragrant. Do you have time for one more sign of spring? It's an unusual sign of spring. Take a look at this guy right here. Isn't that amazing? This right here is Andromeda polifolia. It's called bog rosemary. Interesting side story by the way. Carl Linnaeus, you know, he's that Swedish scientist way back in 1700s, actually 1732 to be exact. He was in Sweden. Now, if you don't know Carl Linnaeus, everybody should know Carl Linnaeus. He is the father of taxonomy. Is the system on how we name plants and animals across this amazing planet. Anyway, Carl Linnaeus, father of taxonomy, during his time, by the way, he was like the big scientist. He's up in Upper Sweden, notices this plant, not this particular plant, but this plant, 1732. He names it Andromeda polifolia. Andromeda means ruler of men. Take a look at those blooms. And it's often called bog rosemary. It isn't a rosemary, but it has rosemary type leaves. You get that? It's always a spring bloomer, by the way. Stays really small, very compact, easy to grow. Loves the morning sun. It can take the afternoon sun as well. Really easy. And the reason why I brought this one out is just that bluish color. It's really a neat, striking plant when you put it in containers. Can you take one more? Because if we're going to put in a container, I want to show you how. Senecio angel wings. Throw in this Andromeda polifolia. Throw in the bacopa. And you have this blue, striking silver, and white. I'll go over more of these plants and plant mixtures as we go on in the season. Guys, that's the show for the day. Always live your passion.